Good morning. Today is 17 July, the year 2024. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in Palm Springs, California. As part of the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in our country's military conflicts, especially World War II. Today, I'm here at the museum along with a fellow volunteer, Diane Thompson, and special guests, Bill Zeichus and Liam Zeichus. And today we have the honor and the privilege of hearing the story of Tech Sergeant Joe Sciarra. Tech Sergeant Sciarra was a U.S. Army platoon sergeant with a mortar squad seeing combat in the Philippines during World War II. So we're going to talk to him about that and a lot of other things. Sergeant, really good to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay, Sarge, first of all, would you please state and spell your full name?
Yeah, my name is Joe Sciarra.
Do you have a middle name?
Well, actually, I go by Junior, being I usually use Joe Sciarra, but Joe Sciarra Jr.
Oh, okay,
We'll work it out
that's
that
fine.
way, yeah.
And when were you born?
I was born in December 21st, 1924.
Wow. Making you how many years young?
Well, in a few months, I'll be 100 years old.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Yes.
Well, you look great, and you've had a wonderful life, I'm sure. And where were you born?
I was born in Chinatown, L.A., on Broadway and Alpine.
Oh, Chinatown. So
Yeah,
what area of...
That's near the City Hall of L.A., not too far, about a mile away from there. And mostly, I was just a child there. I don't remember a lot around the area because I think at a very young age that things are getting pretty rough around there in that area. Then my folks decided to build a home in the southern part of L.A., which is on Avalon and Florence, which is a little better neighborhood at the time. And so...
So your his name was the same as yours.
Right.
And where did he come from, like in the old country?
He come from Bari, Italy.
Okay.
And
I remember Bari, we had a big Air Force base during World War II in Bari, flying probably B-17s and B-24s out of there. Did he come from there, or did his ancestors come from there?
No, he come from there.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was, I think, 16 years old when he arrived to the United States, yeah.
Did he come through Ellis Island?
Probably Ellis Island, yeah. My folks never really talked too much about it, how they come about, but I know that's how they had to come across there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spell your last name for us.
Sciarra.
And you pronounce it Sciarra, right?
Yeah.
And was that always the name in Italy?
Yeah.
It wasn't changed like some of them did?
I understand that name in Naples and Rome is very popular. And so it's a very well-known name in that particular area.
And what did your father do?
My dad was a meat cutter, working for a packing company for many years, and it worked out real good for us, even through the time in the early 29s when we had our problems. He was the only one really working and making $50 a week. But not only did he take care of 6 siblings, but he's also taking care of my mother's sister's family and 6 siblings, so he made sure that 2 families had plenty of food and happiness and everything, so they were pleasant parents to have, yeah.
When he first came to the United States, did he come straight to California?
Yeah, he did come because he had relatives here that he was able to stay with before he got himself settled down, yeah.
Yeah. And your mom, what was her name? And
Her name was, they call her Lucia. and she come at a later date, and
She came from Italy as well?
from Italy, and so my dad happened to know her dad, and he found out about these 3 sisters coming from Italy. So he made a quick decision to pick one of the sisters that he liked very much, and married one of those sisters. And
What was your mom's maiden name?
Distorsi.
How do you spell that?
Disdorei, I think, something like that.
Yeah. Did she come from the Bay Area too?
Same area, yeah.
Bari, yeah. Okay, and do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have 3 brothers and 1 sister, 2 sisters.
And
And I'm one of the youngest, and I had a sister a little younger than I. And my oldest sister sort of was like a mother to me, because being the youngest, my mother has 6 siblings, so my sister sort of took over and helped me out and grew them, being my second mom, and I always loved her more than anybody else. Yeah.
And what was her name and the rest
Her
of
name
them?
was Pearl.
And what are the others' names?
Then my sister Catherine, and I had a brother named Patrick, and a brother named Michael, and a brother named James.
I think you mentioned that they all served in World War II
All
as well.
3, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what they did?
Well, actually, I don't know why they even were drafted. 2 of my oldest brother, my brother next to me was a European. And the European won their patent on map making, and in fact of the matter, I received my beautiful card from President Roosevelt, a beautiful invitation to invite me to be part of the armed services to help out whatever had to be done. But I got my invitation before my brother did, and he was so upset and hurt that he volunteered. So he did go to school and become a map maker for.
And which brother was
James?
James.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so evidently he had a beautiful position with Patton and in Europe, and but I thought that was kind of nice of what he did. But in my case, I was drafted.
Yeah.
And
What about your other 2 brothers?
my other 2 brothers, actually, after the war was really over, and why they were in their early 30s and late 20s and children, and why they even drafted them, but they were sent to the Philippines. So I got after the war, my captain gave me his Jeep with his driver, and I was able to travel and saw one of my brothers. But the other one evidently had called back home because his son was ill, so he's able to get away. I didn't get to see him, no.
Yeah.
So
So going back to when you were growing up, what did your kids do for fun?
Well, actually, being the youngest of the family, I was just a little kid compared to my brothers, My dad made it a point that we always had happiness, and always was very much responsible for us to do things that were happy to us doing. When the Italians came over, they didn't have the ability like an American, to do many things. But he was his kindness and everything made us a family very close. And the weekends we live close to the beach area, and on the weekends if it's summer, we take us to the beach, all of us. And he had one of these Model A's with the back seats, and we all fit in there. And we also took his sister-in-law's kids, the 6. We're all in that little car and traveled every weekend to the Venice Beach, and enjoy ourselves there. That was a big thing, We didn't do much traveling because Dad's working. We didn't make that kind of money but we used to go to San Diego a lot with the family because that's where his brother was at. So that was a nice trip for us, But he's always taking us out in the field. I don't ever remember my mother and father going to the store to buy anything. We go out in the field, and a lot of those fields that the farmers had big up, there was a lot of leftovers. So they let us pick up whatever they might want, like the tomatoes or whatever it is. And they used to make their own food at home, and naturally a lot of spaghetti, and my mom would make her own noodles and stuff like that. So I don't remember my mother ever going to the store to buy, unless you went to an Italian store, to pick up a little Italian item, stuff like that. But other than that, she was the best baker. She used to make 7 loaves of bread a week or more. And my dad built her a little oven out in the backyard, where she burned wood in there, and then she'd bake her bread and food in there, and raise our own chickens, raise our own rabbits, and so we ate well. We never. It was always a beautiful. And every night, everybody at 6 o'clock had meal and sat together as a family. As long as I could remember, it was a beautiful family. And
was your family very religious? Did you guys go to church a lot?
Okay, no, that's my mother. We were very religious, but we never went to church. Maybe on holidays, and but my mom, my dad used to go to work early in the morning, like 4 in the morning, and she'd never go back to sleep. She'd be praying all this time, and we didn't know until she passed away. All her prayers were in Latin, so she had to have some kind of education to do that, and that was that she prayed for her kids and her husband, very much so. We had a happy family.
Did you, once you moved out of Chinatown, did you live in the same house pretty much all the time when you were growing up?
Yeah, my dad built a beautiful home in the south part of L.A. And
what street? What was the address?
73, 63, and I think it was 63 South 73rd Street.
Oh.
And he built a home with a large basement. So that's where we actually had our food, and that's where we only go upstairs, and we had plenty of room up there for everybody to have their own room. And
it was a single story?
A single story, yeah, but we had a bit large basement, as large as the first
you don't see basements out here in California all that much.
And that's where Mom used to do all her washing and everything, and baking and everything, and all her canned goods and whatever she needed to be done. And she was a hard worker. From the time my dad left for work until she'd wake us up in the morning for school, but the rest of the day she'd be cleaning the house or getting ready for dinner or all the things. I never remember my mother just sitting down and idle. She was always on the move.
Was there a local neighborhood movie theater close to you?
Well, if there was, we were not a big time. That was something that we never did. But there was a lot of activities that the Italian organizations used to have that they would take us to.
That's why I meant to ask you, were there many other Italians living in your neighborhood?
That's why we moved in that area. There was. In fact, we had our neighbors and my dad's brother living close by, and then down the street, there's quite a few. So it was, yes. There was a lot of the Italians in that area, yeah.
Is there an area called Little Italy?
I don't remember anything called Little Italy, but at one time, it was Little Italy, be on Broadway and Alpine, and that area was all loaded with Italians. And
where did you go to grade school?
I went to 43rd Street. In South LA in grade school. I didn't live the life I should have lived with my family. I think about it today, how I was neglected in a lot of ways. I think my mother and dad wanted a girl, wanted instead of a boy when I was born. I was the 5th one, and so they sort of shunned me away on an aunt and uncle, which. My aunt and uncle and I thought they were like my parents so much, and I felt, but I enjoyed that. But when I was with my parents and everything, I was always happy with my brothers and everything. But even like today, I think about it. I was not really educated like I should have been, because I was never with my brothers to help me out with my. They never knew They never saw my report cards. They never knew what I was doing in school. Nothing, you know. And so I think about it today, why I was not as intelligent as I should have been. So whatever I did on my own, not with my help of my family. And I feel that I was neglected in a lot of ways because my older brothers could have helped me out. What they did with my other brother, they did well. And so that's okay. I still love my family, but I was sort of disappointed. Now I think about my parents. They never showed have done to me and shown me to my aunt and uncle who only spoke Italian. And they treat me like a son, but it was not the same thing as a family.
Were you able to speak Italian?
I can speak Italian, not as fluently as most people, but I had to understand everything they say because that's all they spoke. But I picked up a lot of words, you know, and sometimes when I go to bed now, and I have no one to speak to, and I will speak to myself and in dialect, which is very hard, and I do well, and so. In my sleep sometimes, I try to something I would have said to my dad, and my mom in Italian. I would tell them that I was not treated as nice as the other siblings because they shunned me away to my aunt and uncle, you know, in Italian, and why I should have been a lot more intelligent than I was because of it, you know, and I felt good. I speak that in my dream, you know, and I do well.
And your aunt and uncle, did they live pretty close?
Yeah,
to
2 doors away. Yeah. They loved me. Yeah, they thought the world of me. You know, my aunt and uncle, I was close to. They take me a lot of places, and that's another thing that was wrong. I was with them all the time, and not with my siblings and my dad and mom. And
did you like sports? Did you play sports?
Yeah. I was a little guy. And well, in junior high, I didn't. I ran a little bit. You know, I was a pretty good runner, but I was not too smart of a guy. I was not intelligent enough, but I was very active, and so I got along with everybody. But nobody ever knew how stupid I really was. But I did something. I ran for student body president in middle school, and I put things together. And I had a friend of mine in the printing business. I mean, make cards out, and I'd pass them out when I was running for president. I was president of the junior, and I did well. But I had a young man that would help me out make speeches, and I would take those speeches. I remember everything about it. When I got on the front of all these people, I was able to talk to them like I wrote it, but I did well, and I remembered every word that. And so I become president of a student body of a middle school.
What was the name of that school?
Edison Junior High.
Edison Junior High.
Then I went to Fremont High School there. Mm-hmm. And again, too, I took the cheapest classes I know that I wouldn't have to study too hard. But I had no help from my family to tell me what direction to go. That's why I think about it today. I could have been a very intelligent man.
Do you remember any of your your teachers in high school?
Oh yeah, let me tell you about the high school. I went there, and right away I ran for an office there in the 10th grade, you know, and I got it. And so as we went on, we went into a blackout, you know, when the war broke out, and then but I ran for student body president of high school. And I had my friend write me a speech, you know, and I ran against this 6'6" basketball player, very well known, and I was a short guy speaking in front of 4,000 kids in the bleacher, you know, and I remember that thing, and I spoke like no notes or nothing, you know, and I just about beat that. With a few votes between us. Oh. And but I did there was a lot of activity things I did in school to make it happen, you know. But I was actually I took tool and die and everything. I did very well with that, and I got a double A with that. They were really proud of me there. But my classes were lousy.
I wanted to ask you, Do you remember what you were doing December 7th, 1941?
December the 7th, yes, I know what I was doing. And let me tell you a little bit about that. When Hitler was taking all of the countries, I was in a junior grade. I was 13 years old. I kept up with that. I was very upset with that. I was very upset with our president that he was not doing anything. Well, these guys were taking over the European countries, and we should have been doing something, getting ourselves built up. And then December 7th, I was coming down from the mountains, and I heard the bombing of Pearl Harbor. That really threw me off. I was very upset. I was really upset with our president.
So how old were you?
I was 13 years old, 16 years old when
December 7th.
because I says, here we go again, and we were not ready for war. Here I was, look, I should know nothing about that, but I was really, I kept up with it, you know, and I was really upset. Here you had all those ships tied up in this little harbor, you know, and 3,500 men died because we were not ready for anything, you know. Because I learned in the service, while I was in the service, that, you know, you never group yourself together. Always stay apart. I mean, where were these guys that have all those beautiful ships stuck in one little harbor? Just like somebody made it happen to make it easy for Japan to, you know. And that really upset me on December 7th. I was very upset. I just couldn't understand our government and our president not doing what's right.
So what were you doing? Were you camping up in the mountains when you said you came down? What were you?
Well, every once in a while when they get snow up there, we go up there. And
did you have a girlfriend in high school?
you know what? Let me tell you something. I looked like a kid all the time. All my brothers were muscular and they looked like a man. I couldn't shave. I had no beard. And so when in high school, those little girls, they're looking for a manly looking guy. I was just a little kid all the time. And so I tried, but I didn't do too well, you know. And so, like there was one gal at the very end that took a liking to me, but I did something for her that when I got to know her, she was not a Catholic, you know, and I took her to the church, you know, and I told the priest about her. She would like to be a Catholic, you know, she'd become a Catholic. But we become friends, and that's about all. About going out, she had her own guys, you know, doing that. So anyway.
What parish did you belong to then?
Well, at that time it was either St. Malachy's or something like that, in South LA. I was confirmed there. I took my first communion there and everything. Yeah. But it's sad my folks never went to church. You know, even my older brothers and sisters should have been part of that and make sure we all got together and you know, but they didn't do nothing for me. They didn't do anything for me.
So what do you remember about the blackouts?
The blackouts, yes, I can tell you all about those blackouts. And we had every night we had to close all our shades and everything and turn off our lights. My mother, being Italian, she was house arrested because of the fact she was not a citizen, my dad was. So my neighbor was kind enough to once a week to take her downtown. She had to register. So but anyway, and that was the time I was just about in my senior grade and everything. I tried to help her out a little bit, but then I was drafted. But my neighbor used to take her once a week and help her out, and got her to be not a citizen, but got the paperwork for her. Yeah.
Did you know any Japanese American kids in high school or?
Not in our schools. We were mostly all Caucasians, and not too many. But my dad was very much involved with a lot of the farmers that they were really good friends. In fact, of the matter, some of his friends left a lot of stuff with my dad, their car, and whatever it is, you know. So if they come back, they they'd be able to give them back whatever they want. They're good people, and so they were good to my dad to let them pick up a lot of their stuff with their farms and everything. So that my dad knew them, yeah.
Okay, so, but you kept up on what was going on in the world and what
the thing that really when Japan hit Pearl Harbor, most of the cities on the ocean, going to California and Oregon and Seattle, were exposed, and the Japanese that were in favor of their country were there with flashlights and everything, and so that's why President Roosevelt took all the Japanese and put them in a camp area, because the good and the bad had to go there, which is sad. And but I can't blame our president, to do what he did. And so
you're 16 years old now, and so did you think you wanted to get in the fight right away, or was
I felt very much responsible. I know that when I become 18, whatever it was, I was ready to do it, because I really was upset. I was a youngster, but I kept up with everything and all the current events. And the Japanese were buying all our material before the war. They were buying, you know what a suet is? Suet is a fat around your kidney and around, it's a dry suet. They used to buy all that suet. That suet would make ammunition for them and make the powder for the shells. And anything, that's why we had to go. I was able to take a day off. I told the principal, I said, we're taking a day off. I mean, I was not smart, but I was able to make things happen. I said, we got to take a day off. We all got to get out there and bring metal, because we were looking for metal, because we sold everything to Japan. And we had enough metal coming in to be higher than the bleachers.
Wow.
And I think I did a great job there. That was a beautiful thing. I would do anything to help our guy. My country is like my home, like all here. It's my home. And whether it's my house or whether it's my country, I felt that someone is trying to take that away from us, all of us. And I felt upset. I wanted to be part of whatever was taking place. I wanted to be drafted or whatever. I didn't know anything about different, like the Air Corps or the Navy. I didn't know. I just went in, I was drafted, and I went where I was needed. At the time, they needed combat bad boys in the infantry.
But before that, did you have any odd jobs when you were going to high school? Or
yeah, well, in the machine shop I had at night. At night, I had a job with a company not far from the house there, and I used to go work in the afternoon. But they can only keep you there so long. So, but I was doing very well, because I knew I was able to do a job for them. I was not just there as a helper, but I was able to run some of the machines and everything. And no, I did have a little job. In fact, my dad owed some money on a mortgage, and I had money put aside. So on my mom's birthday, I gave her all my money. I says, and this money paid off the house that I gave her, and I thought that was a neat thing I wanted to do for her.
So you had to register for the draft. At what age do you register for the draft?
Well, I didn't have to register. I didn't have that. They just told me at 18 I was drafted. So, but they gave me a little time to finish my schooling, and a day after I graduated, I had a report down L.A.
So what year did you graduate from high school?
That was 1943.
Okay. And you went right in?
Right, and the day after my graduation, I reported downtown L.A., and I didn't ask any questions. They just shipped me to Camp Roberts, and they put me in the infantry. And whatever they needed me, I was in infantryman, going through all the
What was boot camp like for you?
Well, it's something I didn't know what was that, but anyways, it was a lot of work. I had a lot of training to do, and
Were you in pretty good shape when you
I
went
was in
in?
pretty good shape.
Okay.
I was not too big of a guy compared to everybody. I still was not shaving. I was just a little kid. But I kept up. I kept up with everybody. I don't care how big they were or whatever. I had a job to do, and I tried to learn as much as I could and do what I had to do as an infantryman. And
Had you ever handled firearms before?
No.
Guns or anything? You didn't have
no,
hunting?
no, and I learned how to do all that.
Yeah.
And M1 rifle was a big thing, and that was my weapon at the time. And so I did well with it. I did well. I'm proud of myself for. I just kept up with everybody. I was may not have been the best, but I kept up with any one of those guys. But how bigger they are, and I did well. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. So after boot camp, then where did you go?
Okay, then we went to Pittsburgh and San Francisco, and that's when we got on the ship. And I'd never been on a ship before in my life. And there we had 1,500 and that one little.
Do you remember the name of the ship?
It was a Holland ship, but I couldn't tell you the name of it. And
It's a troop ship, basically.
yeah, it's a troop ship, and I can't remember now when I don't know. Way over there, we stopped and celebrated because you crossed the border. I got all the paperwork I have, and when I crossed that borderline there, because once you cross that borderline, if it's Wednesday now, you automatically it's Thursday when you pet. And so I did well. I was there. I never got sick on a ship. I never did get sick. And so we traveled for 30 days because, and we didn't know where we were going because we had a zigzag because of the.
Were you in a convoy or just by yourself?
No, just by ourselves. And so we had a zigzag there all the ways to our destination. And
did you have stacked up bunks that you?
We did, but you know what? I just couldn't. I slept on deck underneath those the little boats they have there. I thought that was more comfortable for me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't stand that crowd there and the smell and everything. So I slept on deck, and I did well on that. So we ended up at the island of New Caledonia after 30 days. And there we met the 25th Infantry Division. These are the men that just got through with Guadalcanal.
Right.
And I tell you about Guadalcanal. See, Guadalcanal, the Marines were the first to land. So they were the first. And when they found out they had a real problem, they could not handle it. That's when they called the infantry, 25th Infantry Division, to join them to complete their job to win that. Because there's this infantry thing has really got me, because we're not really recognized as well as the Marines or we're always at the lower end. Like now, you heard the president speak that these are going on TV right now with the president. Now everybody there are talking about they're in the service. You hear about the Marines, you hear about the Air Corps, but no one there is talking from the infantry. That bothers the hell out of me. You know, and I got stories to tell what we did. And when you go through this, I'll tell you more about what the infantry men do. And we never got credit for it. And a lot of times I'm called at the cemetery at Rose Hill Cemetery during Memorial Day. I'm their key person. And then they start playing these songs. First was when the Army, while you hear people clap, but then the Marines come and everybody goes crazy. And same thing with the Air Corps or the Navy. But yet we're brought down like we do nothing, and that's not a true story.
No, well,
No.
you may. I don't see it. I mean, I think the Army is very well respected, and
I know
the infantry, and you know and I know because we have a lot of pilots around here that I've interviewed over the years that that were in World War II and flew, and they always talk about how they had it, they were luckier than you guys down on the ground.
The reason why I say this is that I went to breakfast with my brother, who is an engineer, and then I went, the other part, he was a Marine, and I was an infantryman. And I got badges for each one of them, the assembled. So we had a man come up there and congratulated the Marine and congratulated my brother and bypassed me. You know, no, I have to talk about it. I have to talk, when I speak throughout the country, I try to understand that the infantry did their job too. Not better than anybody else, and we could not do without the others. We could not do without each other in every war.
Yeah.
But we're not getting that, and our uniforms were lousy to start out with.
Well, even they talk today. I mean, with all the smart bomb, all this technical stuff, you still need boots on the ground. You need you guys to go in and finish. You know, you can soften them up a little bit, but you know, if you're going to win, you got to have you guys to really do it.
As we go along here with this conversation, I could tell more about it, and that's what brought tears to a lot of my people when I done doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's continue on then.
Yeah.
So you get into New Caledonia, and I know that's right around where the Coral Sea is, and there was a big battle and Guadalcanal prior to that. So when you get into New Caledonia, what's that like? Is it, what kind of a base is that?
Well, the base actually it had a lot of ridges. So a lot of our training there were on ridges. In fact of the matter is, Guadalcanal was the most important thing that happened to us. That was the best thing that we ever done. In fact of the matter, once we took it over, it was so important to the Japanese, they come back and try to take it back again. And they couldn't do it. But Guadalcanal, New Caledonia is an island they wanted too. Because New Caledonia was close to New Zealand and Australia. So they needed that piece. So we were there not only training there, also protecting that island. So while we were training.
Yeah, so I think the Battle of the Coral Sea, they were coming down. They wanted to take New Caledonia at that time, and that was when that battle came about.
Yeah,
so it was really a strategic, important thing.
It was,
because it would have cut off our supply chain from Hawaii to Australia and New Zealand. Okay, but okay. So you, what rank were you then?
I was just a private. I was just a one striper.
And your training. So what did you guys do?
Mainly our training there. Naturally, it was all ridges, climbing up ridges and crossing up streams, and we had to figure out, like, a lot of streams were pretty deep where we had to take our clothes off, get our poncho and put it in there, and then and take it, put it on a stream and swim across that stream. We had those a lot of ways because that in the jungles that you'll find a lot of streams and stuff like that, and so it was hard training, you know, and.
I know in a little while we'll be talking about your combat experiences in the Philippines, but what I want to ask you is the training you had in the States, the training you had there, how helpful was that for you to
Well, actually, it was very helpful, but the point is when I got into New Caledonia, I was put into a heavy weapon platoon company. It was one platoon was for 50 caliber machine guns, 30 caliber, and the other platoon was 81 millimeter mortars. So that whatever training I had in rifling, I know how to handle the rifle and all that. But now it's a different thing, you know, to learn about those 81 millimeter mortars.
Well, tell me about how does a mortar work? What's in the purpose of it?
The purpose of it. Okay, it starts out. Let me start out. When you take it apart in three pieces, it's a base plate, the tripod, and a tube. And each item weighs 45 pounds. And the purpose of the weapon is very, very important. It's an enemy to the Japanese or anybody else. It was a weapon they didn't care for, because the fact is, when we fire a shell out of there, it goes straight up and then straight down. Where an artillery shell will go like a boom till. So that when it comes down, it would go right into their foxholes or whatever it is. So it was very, very dangerous. So it was quite a deal. Like a lot of times we were up in the hills there. How that works out is the fact that we set up 6 guns, and normally we always have to find a place where it's a little more clear, that we have more land. Because in order to fire those shells, the trees can't be in the way. You know, 'cause it goes 3,500 yards. You know, and so when it goes that far, the tube is a little lower, so we need that space. So when that happens, what we have to do is either the section sergeant or the platoon sergeant has to go in front with the rifleman with a wiring or whatever it is, and so he's up there to determine if the enemy's there, to determine how far the shell could go. We'd have all the equipment. The tripod would have all the equipment on it to set up the distance and everything on it. So they would give us the information. So it's very, very important that the person in front has to make sure the first shell goes a little beyond is what he's thinking. So a lot of times if it lands short, it'll hit him on man. So that was quite a job. But let me tell you, there were 6 weapons we had. We can put 100 shots in the air before the first one hit within 5 minutes. We can do that. And that's what made that weapon so. So our positions were always shelled.
How many on a mortar? How many men on?
Well, we had the man who handles the distance, and we have the person who throws the shell in. That was my job. And the others are the ones that carry them and get the app and they get it to. Each shell weighed 11 pounds each, and.
And you were on the 81 millimeter.
On 81 millimeter.
Now was that the largest? You had some other.
There has some smaller. They call it they're a little smaller than the 81 millimeter. I forget right now. I'm trying to remember.
So the 81 had a little more firepower.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
the other ones,
the
other ones are very shells are not quite as big.
And the shells, did you have the same type of a shell that was like fragmentation, basically, or did you have any other different kind?
Just that one.
Okay.
Yeah, just that one. We used to have one shell that when you landed, it sort of threw out a red smoke.
Yes, so
they get in the jungle there, we had no support from the air and no support from the artillery. It was a suicidal operation.
But you had to have some riflemen to kind of protect your position.
We were there for the riflemen. We were the protection for them. Because they couldn't have no artillery, no air power. We were their protection.
Right.
So whenever they were in trouble, we were there for them. And so our weapons that's why we were always tagged by the enemy. We were bombed many times, shelled many times. They used to find our locations. And so that was always you know what, and I was not afraid of death. I just did a job I had to do, and I want to make sure I did it right, and so did my rest of the men. We did a great job, all these guys. And then our biggest job in the jungle there in the Philippines was the fact that we were at this disadvantage because the enemy was on top of the ridge, and the first thing they would do is going after the officers, non-commissioned officers and all that. And so it got to a point where we lost a lot of our young men that were killed were fine. Or this is where we got to the people in Louisiana and had them tears, is that a lot of times when our young men were killed, well, we still had to move on. We couldn't shed tears or whatever it is. But the thing we did do, we took their ponchos and we had to wrap them up and tie them up because we had to, instead of leaving them bare, that way the animals would not get to them. That's what we did with them. And these are all my friends. And so, yeah, you're sad, but you got to move on. You have to, we just moved on and do what you have to do. Because I can tell you at the very end when we get talking, then I will tell you a little more how this about affects you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's kind of go. Okay, so how long were you on New Caledonia there?
Okay, it took us, in New Caledonia, we were there. Actually, we could not make a move. We were there for 9 months, but we had to. We had nowhere to go until there was a big naval battle going right off the Philippines. And that was a battle that either had to be won or we would lose. We couldn't, the Navy would not have access to the Pacific Ocean. Once they won that battle, and therefore we come control of the Pacific, then we were able to come and make the invasion of the Philippines. And that's when we left, you know.
When you made that invasion, was MacArthur already there?
Okay, when we were leaving, we left with one ship. So it took us 30 days to get there. So each day there'd be accumulation of other ships joining us. And before you know it, there was 100 ships. So in the middle of the 100 ships, you can see the red flag, and that was MacArthur's in the middle of that ship. So when we landed there, we had about 68,000 men and in the Philippines. We didn't get too much opposition. We had some air problems with them that dropped bombs on us. We had one big artillery deal from the mountains at us, so we didn't get a lot of activity there. And so...
where did you actually land?
Right in Luzan.
Luzon.
Philippines. That was the capital of the Philippines. That's when our guy, General MacArthur, got off and went, he says, we liberalized, and that was not, he might have liberalized this section, but there was 47 ridges with a pass, they call Balete Pass, was all controlled by over 100,000 and maybe more that surrounded that. They were protecting all that area. So as we were getting close to those ridges, we were in two, what they call when you're caught in a trap with the, it's in here. We were trapped and surrounded by Japanese and ambushing. We were ambushed twice before we got there. And so I lost, my buddies there, each time we lost 2 or 3 in my section alone, not counting the rest of them. So that was my first experience in combat, and it was these ambushes. But my thing that bothered me more was the young men that just got killed, and here I was still alive, you know. And but we had a lieutenant that where I had guns. We set up some guns, you know, and he says, "Get the F out of there." So what I did, I figured the tube was my weapon. I took my part of that gun. I took that tube, put it on my shoulder, and I took off. So as I was going on, the shrapnels of the people was hitting my tubes, and I can hear the banging in there. I might have had a few. I had one hitting my thigh, but it was not too bad. I can take care of that. And I can hear this hitting my helmet and hitting but I got out of that all right. And that was a close deal. So those ambushes, you know, they're deadly.
I want to ask you about your officers. I know some of them they call like 90 they went through OCS and they come in really young. Some of them were West Pointers. What were your officers like?
Well, actually, a lot of these officers, they sound like it was our first appointment. There's not much of anything, and
Did they depend on you non-coms pretty well?
I was not a non-com man. I was still a private as I go along, but they absolutely they depend on a lot of these
Sergeants.
young men that were fighting in Guadalcanal. They were old timers. You could see it, and then and so by the time we went and hit the ridges, a lot of those guys were sent home because I guess they were mostly all brand new young men doing the job, and so. But while we were there, they taught us as much as they knew, and so. Anyway, that's then after those two ambushes, then we started hitting the ridges. Now,
Were any of the Filipinos fighting with you?
yeah, but not right away. As we were getting into the middle of the ridges and everything, they started joining us, because we needed replacements too. Yeah.
Were there any Filipino villages in the areas that you
We
were
got
fighting?
yeah. There's a lot of little villages as we come through,
And how did they?
A lot of them were.
Treat you.
A lot of them there. You didn't see too many in there. A lot of them were up in the mountains somewhere. In fact, the matter, my folks, I never remember it. I was up in the mountains somewhere where I was taking. They were in caves, and my folks said they saw me in the movies taking a little child out of a cave, helping these people getting out. That's where they're moving it, a lot of them. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I before we hit the ridges, we were able to blow up a lot of areas where they had all their equipment and everything, and blow up their ammunition. And before we went there, we did a lot of work before we hit the ridges. We didn't know we were going to the ridges, but our training in New Caledonia, that was the thing. A lot of those ridges are 6,000 foot high. They're not little ridges, and so. But here I am, a little guy, we're not shaven yet, and I think I did very well.
Were any of the Japanese surrendering, or did you capture any of them along the way?
We didn't take it. We were not. There was none of them that gave up. Not in our area, but when we get up in the mountains, we don't take. Nobody took him, and everybody kill or be killed. We were in a suicidal deal, and no such thing. So that's what we caught into, and so. So as we went through the ridges there, I did my job. We had our packs, between my tube was 45 pounds, and my pack was maybe 30, 40 pounds, and then I had our carbine rifled, and plus your ammunition and everything, climbing up those ridges. I did well. As a little guy, I did well. I was really proud of myself. I just kept up. I kept up with them, and in fact, I even helped some of the bigger guys. They had trouble carrying something. I took a couple things off and still had all my stuff, but I still climbing those mountains and those ridges was something. And
were they chaplains with you?
No chaplains, no medics, nobody.
Really?
We were on our own. We were on our own. I didn't want to pay attention to that. I just wanted to do what I was able to do with the group. I never thought of myself. I thought about the young men and I could become family, and we worked together, and but we would be up there a week or so, then maybe relief. So actually, we were probably 30,000. We're 3 divisions. We were probably 30,000 going, taking over those ridges. Then we have a relief in the back that would relieve us after a week and a half. And then by the time they got down, we had to strip our clothes and everything. We were full of lice. We had muddy stuff all over us, and they'd spray us and give us clothing and everything. And then we have a week there to write letters to our loved ones and get our mail and everything and have a good meal, and then we go right back up again. So this is how we rotated that, and we were fighting over 100,000 of these Japanese. So we were always at a disadvantage and everything. So
What kind of rations did you have with
we
you?
had the sea rations, we had canned rations, and I liked the hot dog and spaghetti. That was pretty good. And a lot of stuff you just ate it cold. A lot of it was dry stuff too. And our water, I didn't have to worry about. The water, we had a lot of streams, and we get water from the streams, but we had pills to purify that water with. That was pretty good. So as we go along, we had a lot of our men that didn't make it, and this one, what really got these people in Newport, North Carolina, after I was talking that, yes, I am grateful to be here to talk with you, because a lot of my men around me were killed, and then one of my best friends, we're already. He's talking to me about, he's talking about Philadelphia. And he's a 32, 33-year-old man. He had a family and a child. And he was talking about his divorce, you know. And every time the holiday come along, his wife would be in his home, and he'd walk by it and see all the big family there, and he'd be all alone all the time. And so for some odd reason, I jumped on my gun because I thought we'd be ready to go. And one of our own shells landed short and blew his head right off. And I've seen plenty of this, but not my friend like that. It was.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Fred Arcangelo.
Fred?
Arcangelo. He's from Philadelphia. And, but you know, the first thing we had to do is wrap him up and get his belongings. And because we had to keep going. And because you don't know how many days before they pick up our men, you know. That really hurt me very badly, but I couldn't stop. I had a job to do. I had to keep moving right along, or else I'd get been dead too, you know. And so, anyway, as we got halfway through, where we got half of the bridges taken care of, you know, we lost our platoon sergeant. We lost, there were 6 squad sergeants, and we had 3 section sergeants. Half of them were call, and I was still a 1 striper. So I had this lieutenant come up to me, and he says, "Mr. Sciarra, as of right now, you're the platoon sergeant." I was shocked because that really scared the hell out of me, because there now I got, with all our replacement coming in, 36 men, plus 6 of those guns, which weighed 150 pounds each. I was responsible for the whole thing and put it together at 20 years old. And that really, I really had to do some thinking, and I said, well, I got a job to do and I got to work it out. So what I did, I got all my sergeants together, and I told them, you know, I was appointed root sergeant, but it's not going to work out that way. We're all going to make decisions together. We're not going to make my decision. We're going to get together and work together and make it easy, you know, and that worked out beautifully. So we did go through the whole set. I didn't lose any men, but a lot of them were wounded. And I felt proud of myself by the end of the day, after 5.5 months, that we got through there. I was lucky to be alive. And I was just a kid. I still was not shaven. I was just a kid, you know. And these guys, a lot of my men in that platoon were elderly men with beards and rough looking and tall and hucky. And here I was, a little guy. I went down from 165 to 135 when I was up in the mountains there, and so I was a little guy, but yet I feel good about myself, just keeping up. I'm not better than anybody.
Well, what's the most important thing about leading men like this, and especially in this kind of situation?
The most important thing to lead them, to know their jobs. Everybody has a job to do. Some is first the hand of gun, for the tripod and the tube,
and you'd have to sometimes come down hard on a guy that wasn't pulling his weight, kind of.
I think when I become platoon sergeant, we worked as a family. We had good feelings for each other and working together. I was able to do that as a little guy. I did a good job. I'm proud of myself. I really was proud of myself. And we took the last ridge. The 25th Division took the last 47th Ridge. And also we had a Colonel Dalton that was part of operating with us, and he got killed. So they named but Eddie passed after his name, Colonel Dalton. Very well recognized and liked by all the men. So, and after the ridges we got completed there, we're now getting ready for the invasion of Japan. We start training, and we got new recruits in, and we're training them and getting them ready and to get ready to whatever we had to do. And but then as I understand, the war was over. We didn't know about it until 4 days after the war was over. We're still operating and trying to.
Where were you in the Philippines at that point?
Luzan.
Still on Luzan.
Yeah, we're in still Luzan and training there because then.
And you were pretty sure that you were going to be invading Japan?
No, absolutely. That was our next step. Because I understand that we're going to be very deadly. Now, coming back to the Marines. The Marines could not do anything, go to these islands until we were able to take over the Philippines, because they needed that as a basic part for them now to start invading the. And so what happened? A lot of the Japanese left the Philippines and fortified all these islands. That's why the Marines had such a tough time. And the closer you got to Japan, the worse it got. So it's they did a good job. They lost a lot of men, and there's good stories about them. Yeah, there are stories to tell about them, and so they lost a lot of men, and they did a beautiful job of whatever they did. And I listen. I love every field, whether you're Air Corps or whatever it is. We could not do without them. So I just feel that, like the infantrymen are there with General MacArthur and General Marshall and Patton, and they're all Army men. The Army actually won the war in Europe. All of it, they won. They did a hell of a job there with the help, whatever it is. And the Marines did a great job with the islands there. But there's a lot of things they had to happen on Guadalcanal and the Philippines before they can make a move. So we did our job as an infantryman.
Also, I wanted to ask you, do you remember what you were doing or when you heard that President Roosevelt had died?
Okay, I was up on the ridge, and my brother wrote me a letter. Telling me that Roosevelt died. We don't get news. Nobody tells us what happens. So my brother wrote me to him.
And when was the first time you heard about the bomb being dropped?
We didn't hear until maybe 3 or 4 days until that we didn't get no news as to what happened.
And I imagine that I know your feelings about it, but some people question whether we should have dropped the bomb or not.
Well, let me say the way I hear it all, and that Truman has given Japan an opportunity to resign, to give up their many a times. Then we had like 600 airplanes at one time from all the islands there get together and bomb the hell out of Japan. And after they did that, he warned them and says, okay, we're giving you an opportunity to surrender, and he would not do it. So this was the next thing he had to do, which is sad, to release that bomb. And so Or you take like the admiral that trained these planes to carry that bomb on that aircraft, and that was a job in itself. And so everybody did their job. Everybody did their job, and I just sometimes I thank God and all. I talk every night. I pray with God and Jesus and all the angels of God. Because my brother sent me a prayer. He says, they call me Peppy, my nickname. And he says, Pep, I got this little prayer I want you to say every morning. And so every time I get on top of the ridge, I say that little prayer. And I still say it. And I just feel so grateful. And I thank him every night. I thank them for bringing me home to my mother and father and to my brothers and sisters, you know. And this young gal I met when she was 11 years old, she had to visit my family, and it was close to my sister. And I was only, 12 years old or so, and I always tried to get close with her. And she always had nothing to do with me, you know. And so when she'd have to go back to Chicago, I gave her a little necklace, you know. And I never heard from her again until I was in the Philippines, and I got a letter from her sister. And it says, her name was Lucille. It says, Lucille would like to write to you. Oh, I said, my God, what a beautiful thing. For 2 years that she's been writing to me. And in her letters, we made arrangements so we'd be together once this is over with, you know. And so I had to make sure to stay alive because, and she just sent me pictures and stuff. And I said, holy mackerel, what a beautiful physique, you know. Oh my God. Thank you, God, I say. So when I got home, and she made arrangements so when I got home I would go to Chicago to meet her family, then bring her back to L.A. So it so happened when I got home, after I had the occupation of Japan, I got home and I had a little touch of malaria in Japan, but when I got home it hit me terribly. But I was able to get her back. I said, I can't leave now, but if you come here, I paid her well to come. So I spent a couple of days with her, you know, and so I was so sick with malaria. When I went for my papers, discharge papers, they said, well, we're not giving you it now, you're going to the hospital. So I spent 3 weeks in the hospital with a deadly deal of malaria, which they thought I would never make it. And so while I was in there, I was thinking, well, let me see now. If she's not there when I get out, I would understand it. Why would she want to marry a sick man like me and go through life? So when I got out, she was there. And that made me so happy. And so when I was telling my dad, I had no money because, you know what, they paid us $21 a month. So how in the hell could I have any money when I come home? Then when I got home, they gave us $300. So what can I do with $300? You know? And so I had no money, and I told my dad, I says, I got to marry this gal right away because, I don't know, she's so beautiful. She might be taken away from me. So my dad says, we'll work it out. So that year in October, we got married and been married for 72 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's run back a little bit. So
Yeah.
what I'm assuming from what you said is that at some point in time you go to Japan to be part of the occupation.
Yeah.
That was before you came home, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, actually my job, when we hit Japan, we had a typhoon, one of the worst typhoons ever in the history of the China Sea. And we had swells of water higher than our ship. We were looking at the swells. And some of these ships were ready to split in two. It was so bad. And so, and that not the bad. We actually skipped part of that. You know, we went around and it took us, from 4 days, it took us 30 days to get around to get to Japan. And so we finally got there, and we went in, and we were trucked to a little air base, Shanfu Air Base in Japan, and that's where our base was at. And our job, my platoon's job was there to go around and to, too bad, I may have a picture in there. It's too bad. Our job was to destroy all weaponry. And so whether it was, some of these planes were still on the assembly line or all ammunition. Then we found a building where it was where they have an inventory of all their stuff, which was all brand new, which I was able to bring a few things home on that. And all the ammunition and everything was dumped in the ocean, whatever it is. But I had too bad I didn't think. I have a picture of my brother happened to be visiting with me. So I had this pile of stuff just stacked up high that we had accumulated with my brother and I and one of my sergeants, you know. And then while we were there, the Japanese were very good, beautiful. I couldn't believe it. I told one, I said, why the hell do you want to fight us? I mean, you're beautiful people. What it was all about. But they didn't really answer me. But anyway, the point I'm going to make is some of these families invited us to their homes for dinner, which was beautiful, and beautiful dinners, and so that was great. And so we were there. I was there for 5.5 months, and then I was shipping home. But a lot of things have happened where I was so ill, and I was working for compensation. I did get 30% as soon as I got there because malaria, the American agent got that for me and everything. So, but I had to do something for my life. I just I had no money.
Okay, so this young lady now, Lucille,
Yeah.
what was her maiden name?
Salvaggio.
Salvaggio.
Yeah.
Okay, so
She comes from a family that had 8 siblings,
wow.
and she was one of the youngest, you know. And I was really fortunate to.
And how did you meet? When you met her when you were?
Well, she
young?
actually is my brother-in-law's sister.
Oh, okay.
But when she left, I never heard from her again. But
Right.
my sister happened to get me a picture of her, so I always had a picture in my wallet. So when anybody says, well, I always tell them I have a girlfriend, but I didn't know that. I had no connection with her. I figured
Yeah.
that she has a life out there, and I didn't think that she'd ever contact me again or whatever.
What did her father do?
He worked for the railroad track, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so.
And their family came from Italy too?
Well, they come. The mother is born here. She's a Sicilian, and her dad was from Bari.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked for the railroad track, and they. In fact, the matter, the 8 siblings. When my wife was born, her 2 older sisters were already married. They were 20 or 25 years older than her when she was born, so she was well taken care of by the family. But she is such a beautiful young lady.
So when you got married, did you get married in church?
Yes, absolutely.
Which church?
Well, you know, I don't even remember that, because when I got home, things were all confused for me. I had a rough time. I just lucky to have her stick with me, because that's a story I want to tell you about us veterans that come home, and I'll tell you that story when you're ready.
Okay.
Because I think that's so important, and that's what's happening to a lot of our young men, where a lot of people don't realize what we went through. So when you're ready, I'll tell you about that.
Well, did that, what right when you first came home, did you have problems, or did it pop up later on?
No, well, a lot later on, but when I come home, I had a real problem.
You did. Well,
So I can tell you about
Yeah,
that
let's
if
talk
you're
about
ready
that.
about that.
Sure.
So, but when I tell you about me, I'm telling you about even like today, what's happening with these young men.
Right.
With a lot of these young men, like whatever you go through, you see all that blood and dads and everything, all that stuff, you know. I mean, you don't think nothing of it because it's a job you're doing. You know what they're there for. You know what to expect. You know. So when these veterans come home, mostly Marines or infantrymen who were in that crazy battle, you know, living in foxholes and everything, is when they come home, it's when it hits you. I mean, a lot of these guys commit suicide. Like in my case, you know, I try to keep myself together. I got my malaria. I got my, you know, in the hospital for 3 weeks. You know, I try to keep myself together. I didn't want to lose this beautiful woman that was writing to me, you know. I just trying to get myself. You can't come back and start living a civilian life like you did. When you were going in at 18 years old to 22, you lost the best part of your life, just getting your life together. And at 22, I didn't know what direction to go anymore, you know. And then for 8 years, I had my malaria sticking with me. Each year it faded down, and at 8 years before, you know, I was not getting the attacks like I was. And in the meantime, I didn't want to lose this beautiful girl, so I got married when I was 22. I didn't want to lose her because I know I could have lost her. She's too beautiful to be hanging around, and you know. And so we lived with my folks for 4 years because the fact is, every time I go to work, I get these attacks, and before you know it, these are malaria attacks. It's a 3-week deal. I mean, the first week you're shaking and you're vomiting, your fever, people don't know what you go through. You know, and then it takes you 2 weeks to recuperate. So I couldn't hold on to the job. So my dad and he gave me the opportunity to live with them. They had a big home, and so it's not exactly when people get married they have their own place. So I didn't have the privacy with my beautiful wife, you know, like I should have. And so it took me a while. Like when I got home, I had the shakes, you know. I had the shakes, and I stuttered, you know, trying to get my life together, you know. I tried to avoid to have that shown, you know, to my family or my girlfriend that I had a problem.
Was there a VA or anything like that?
You know what? Let me tell you something. I did. Soon as I went in the hospital for 3 weeks, the American Legion did give me a 30% disability. But no one there was to tell us what we're entitled to. Yes, there's a lot of VAs there, but no one told us what direction to go. So my mother took care of me, but she did a good job. I didn't know anything about I was able to go to college until years later, until they gave me a booklet to read it. But there's nobody there to tell you what you're entitled to. So I had a rough time. I had really a rough time. I couldn't keep a job or anything like that, and so I had to make some decisions and make sure I make some kind of money coming in. And I worked in a machine shop for a while, but they understood when I had that sickness, or when I was so. My brother went in a little meat business, and so I asked him if it's okay if I work with him and learn it, you know. And that's what I did. And I quit the machine shop deal, which I'm really sad I ever did, you know, because I love that. But anyway, I did find a little shop after I learned the business a little bit, and I opened this little shop in an Italian market. And I did well. I did very well. And then the VA, my aunt loaned me money to buy a lot, and the VA built me a home. And it was only 1,100 square foot, but it was beautiful. My wife and one day she says, I want my own home. So right away, I didn't want to rent a place, so I checked in with the VA, and they built me this little home.
What
I
street?
thought that was.
What street was that
I
on?
was on 84th Street in Western in LA, and I say I was really happy with it, and lived there for 13 years, and
And you had your shop all that time?
yeah, I had that shop, that little Italian store, and then
Was that close to your house?
yeah, then I decided to go in partnership with my brother-in-law, which was a big mistake, and I quit that little shop. I was making money there, and I don't know why, but I thought 2 men would be better than, and then my son, we had a son, and he had a blood problem, and he lost his blood, and so he was we had took at the Children's Hospital, and so I took off from work, and spend time with him, make sure he's taken care of. We thought we lost him, and so we bring him home, and they lose their blood again, and then take him back again, and so they had to keep giving blood transfusions, and so he finally had a transfusion from person to person, and that worked, and they called him the miracle baby of the Children's Hospital. And now he's 75. And I got him at home.
What's his name?
Joe Sciarra too. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, I had a beautiful life with this beautiful woman.
Yeah.
So I just lost her 5.5 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So everything I earned and all my money I had in the bank and real estate, I sold, and so she was so ill all the time. Money I had to spend to keep her going. She had leukemia, and then what happened? My son's wife had cancer. So I hired people for my son and for my wife, caretakers. So that took care of, after 5 years or so, it just took care of all my funds, and I had to go to a reverse mortgage on my home. I was interviewed by Channel 11, Fox News, about my wife, and my story about I was in a hospital and she was here, and I didn't know whether she'd be, and so Channel 11 took that and made a story out of it, and I was on Channel 11 on October the 7th, and it's sort of an emotional thing, and so evidently it went over very big, and I didn't get the exposure like I should have, because that October 7th was the day that Israel was bombed. So I didn't get all my full coverage on TV. But it was quite a story, and it worked out beautifully. And
did you videotape that?
they had the video. Channel 11 has the video. I never got it, but
if we could get that from them, we could tag it on to your story.
if we
It would be
could
really
find
good.
a way, I'll ask my son. He's the one that probably can do it for me if I get that video.
Okay. Well,
And then I have something
we
else
can-
going. I'm on YouTube. And you go with the Arcadia Library, World War II, Joe Sciarra. I got 6 segments on there, and that worked out very. People, I don't know how many. I'm really in the top notch of the people that looked at it and saw it, and they're still doing it.
Is this on YouTube you're talking about?
YouTube, yeah.
Okay, so where do you go to? You go to?
Arcadia Library,
Okay.
World War II, Joe Sciarra. And it lasted about an hour and a half, so I did a good job, and evidently, so now what I do, like a lot of times, people want to know more about you, I just give them that so they can, I can't tell you all, you'll give me so much little time, so you can't tell everything, but on there it tells it all.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty good. So
good.
I'm on the top notch of viewers that's gone into it, and so,
Well, we'll put this on YouTube as well.
yeah, so,
Yeah, well, that'll be good.
there's so many things to talk about and tell.
Well, okay, so after the episodes of your malaria is over, and you sold your shop, your meat.
Yeah.
So then, what kind of business did you stay in
What
that type of business or what?
Now, I was in the LA area when I sold the shop, and I happened to go to a wedding, and my old time neighbor was there, and he asked me what I was doing. Well, I said I sold my shop here, but I'm looking for another shop. Oh, he said, I got just the one for you. So he found a shop for me in Alhambra. And so I went there and I was accepted, and he got a lease on there, and I did very well there. I did very well, and in fact,
So
the
that was like a butcher shop?
yeah, butcher shop. Yeah,
What was the name of it?
Pepe's Meats.
Pepe's.
And I formed a beautiful clientele. It was sort of personal. I got to know each customer by name.
What was the address?
I think that would be 520 Alhambra Road, Alhambra, California.
Mm-hmm.
So I did well.
Yeah.
And so one day,
Did you have people working for you too?
well, at first, I did it myself because I didn't know whether I was accepted. Because being I'm Italian, the market down the street told them that you're going to take this guinea and kick him out of the city of Alhambra. They don't belong here, and so I worked for 5 years before I moved there to make sure I can make a living there. So after 5 years, I thought, well, I think it's going to work out. So I bought a home in Arcadia, California, and I've been there for 32 years. But then one day the landlord that came up to me one day says, you know what? He says, I'm going to have to raise your rent. I said, what for? Well, he says, I said, well, you give me such a small little shop. I only have 2 parking spaces. I says, why you want to raise my rent? He says, I'll tell you what, I told him. I got $20,000 in the bank. I'll give to you as a down payment. Sell me this piece of property. I'll be a partners with you. Well, he said, I got to talk to my family. So the next day he comes and says, yeah, we'll sell to you. So it was a shopping center with 9 units in the back. So within 10 years, I paid him off. So then I've been buying houses around there. Before you knew it, I had 72,000 square foot of land there that me and my partner got together. So I thought I'd tell you about that one. And then the guy tried to raise my rent.
So that worked out pretty well for you then.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I lived a good life with my wife. And
Now, did your wife help out in the shop?
oh, absolutely. I made her. You know what? She was alone, and I missed her. So I made her come with me, and she used to be the cashier, and everybody just got to like her. She's such a likable person, and they said customers come there and take her out to lunch, and I thought that was a beautiful thing for her to be with me.
So where would you get your meat?
Well, I say get it from Manning Packing Company. It's a special type. It was a special growth of cattle that was exceptionally good. Cost a little more, but it was well worth it.
Were they raised in California?
Yeah.
the cattle?
Yeah. So I had a good quality stuff. I had quality people, and I wanted to make sure I had the best for them. Yeah.
So Lucille and you, did you travel much?
Yeah. Well, after a while, I talked to one of my brothers that learned me the business, and I says, we're both getting of age. I said, why don't you come in mine and work with me at my shop, and that way we'll be together. I wanted to be with him anyway, so he did. He came and worked with me for 13 years, and that way I was able to travel to the Orient and taken my wife to Chicago many times. Been to Canada, and Toronto, and but I belong to a Rotary Club in Alhambra, so whenever they have a function somewhere, I make sure. I was in Japan for 3 weeks there, and I was become president of the Rotary Club, so they paid my way And so I took my wife there, and I tried to go to the Philippines to show my wife where I was at. But at that time, they had problems where someone was trying to take over. They told us not to go, so I didn't go there. So, but it was a nice trip for us. I went to all the countries there, Singapore, all of them, Thailand, Hong Kong, and
Did you ever go to Italy?
no, that I you know what? I'm an Italian, you know, and I didn't hit it too well with some of these organizations with the Italians. I prefer the Caucasian and whatever. I enjoy that type of. And Italians just everybody always would tell you how good they do, and if you told them something that you did, well, they always tell you they did better. So, I didn't particularly my conversation was not that keen, and so I was happy with the Caucasian organizations, and I did well with them.
Yeah.
I had become president of the Chamber of Commerce. I become president of Rotary Club. I become president of the the YMCA. In fact of the matter, I was responsible for building a new YMCA in Alhambra. I got the city to donate the land to us, you know, and I sold the old Y, and we built a brand new multi-million-dollar Y in Alhambra. I didn't do it all. Once I got all the stuff from the city to give us the land and everything, then professional people had to take over. But I was sort of responsible. But I did out there and brought in $300,000 towards the building, not mine, but people that knew me and donated money and to build the Y. And so I did an awful lot in Alhambra. I donated a lot, and I helped out the new building and the police department, the library there, and I was very much part of the community. And just 2 weeks ago, Friday, there's supposed to be a Rotary function at this down Master Court, you know, and so they wanted me to be there, make sure I was there. So I went there, and so it was sort of an exchange, but the year on when the presidents exchanged their positions, you know. So when I sat way in the back, and no, you can't sit in the back. You got to sit in the front with us. So it was a surprise party to celebrate my 100th birthday. It was 300 people were there. I just couldn't believe it. I've been very well taken care of by people. I've done an awful lot, but they showed me the appreciation throughout.
Were you and your wife, were you active in your parish?
I tell you what. Once I retired, at first, you know, working, because my work was 6.5 days, and we'd go on the holidays and make sure we went. But the year 2000, this friend of mine says, you know what, you got to go to church. You're going to start going to church with me every Sunday. So since the year 2000, I never missed a Mass. And now I got to tell you about this. This is really good. And that's where I met my friends here. I was an usher, and when I ushered, and then when I went to collect money, I was very pleasant. I met people, and I made friends while I was collecting money, and I collect more money than normal, I guess. And then I was at a point where I started sitting in the back of the church. And then I find that I got to age then that I couldn't really go up and down the aisle, but I took care of the back end. And so what I did, I was the guy to pick up the person to bring the gifts. And by doing that, I got to meet so many people, and they all become my friends. Now the whole back part of the church now are my friends, especially my age. I mean, I have these gals hugging me when I get there. They all come up to me. And some of these old people were sitting there watching that, and this old Chinese couple, she always didn't say much. They don't say much. And one day she came up to me and she gave me a great big hug. And I thought, how beautiful that is. So the whole back end, when you say, you know, you want to feast, you know, peaceful, I go to every one of them and I shake their hands, and they give me hugs, and the little kids are now doing it. And so I feel that a church for me on Sunday is the most important thing in the world.
And what's the name of the parish?
Holy Angels Catholic Church in Arcadia. You know.
Arcadia. Well, let's bring your friends up here. Okay, you guys, I introduced you before, but why don't you introduce yourselves? I'll start with you.
I'm Bill Zeichus, and
I'm Liam Zeichus, his son.
Okay, and when did you guys meet?
Well, let me tell you that.
Okay.
I told you that I go around meeting people, and I meet these two guys help me collecting money. These two guys,
Okay,
and we become very good friends. You know.
Yeah, it's always good to be friends with the money people.
So
right?
we've become so close throughout the years, you know, that I confirmed this my guy, and now he adopted me as his grandpa, and I become very close with him and his wife and his beautiful daughter, and become friends. And he's my attorney. He's been helping me out a lot on my needs and everything. And these are the kind of people I meet in church, and all because of that church. It was the best thing I ever did in the year 2000 for me and my wife. And I just miss my wife with me there. And every time I go there, I always look in the aisle where we sat together, you know. And I sort of look at her every Sunday and think about it.
And when did you start going to that parish?
oh my gosh, that parish, I was a member in 1968.
Wow.
So I was 5 years old when we started going to Holy Angels, and that's just always been our family childhood parish. And my wife and I got married at St. Andrew Church in Pasadena, but then we came full circle back to Holy Angels when the kids were at school age, and both Liam and McCall went to Holy Angels Church, the Catholic school there, and we spent a good 12 years there, and my wife and I helped chair the fiesta that they have every year in October, and Joe was always a big part of that.
So where did you go to high school?
I went to Arcadia High School.
Okay. And then where did you go to college?
After that I went to Cal State, well, first I went to PCC for a few years and then Cal State Northridge. So it took me 6 years to get my four-year degree, but I was working and doing things, earning money to buy a car and so on. And then after college, I went to law school at Southwestern University.
Okay, and you're practicing that?
I'm practicing in Pasadena. I've been practicing for over 33 years.
Okay. And you, young man, where did you go to high school?
I just graduated from St. Francis a couple months ago, and we'll be going to UCI in a couple months.
Yeah, that's what you said. And you're undeclared now, but
Undeclared, maybe political science.
leading political science. I've told him, yeah, he's the kind of guy we want to go into politics. So
That would be nice.
yeah.
We'll see.
So you were ushers when before he was, or how long were you ushering?
I made them ushers.
Oh, you made them ushers.
Yeah,
Okay.
I made them part of my.
So as my dad said, he'd been going to the parish long before I was born.
Yes.
And that basically means I'd been going there since I was born. So
Yeah.
I think it was when I was 6 is when I started ushering on that left side there. And you did one of the two main rows. And we'd be on your left. I'd usher with you at first. We'd both go down.
Right.
And eventually I think you did somewhere else and you'd let me go down by myself. But that's where I first met Joe, because you basically know me since I was born.
And I think the ushering was Joe always had the center aisle,
Always, yeah.
and his brother Jim had the left. So when Jim, his brother, said, hey, I can't do this anymore, will you and Liam take over the left side for me? And he said, that's okay, you're going to
Yeah.
take over Jim's spot. So I started ushering, and then I started having Liam come down with me when he's like 5 or 6. So I think everybody really took to that, and then he started just ushering on the left side yourself. And then when COVID hit, all that stopped. And in 2020, I think we just stopped, and we go to Mass pretty much at St. Andrew now.
Oh, okay.
Now we go to St. Andrew, but I'm still active with the Knights of Columbus, and Liam's also a Knights of Columbus at Holy Angels.
Oh, okay.
So
Newest member.
we still have a good connection with Holy Angels through the Knights of Columbus and through Joe. And
How close do you live together?
Well, I grew up in Arcadia, so he lives in Arcadia, but we live in Pasadena now,
Okay.
northeast
About
Pasadena.
how far away?
Maybe
minutes.
it's like maybe 15, 20 minutes away.
Oh,
So
okay.
mile-wise, I don't know, 5, 6 miles, maybe more, 8 miles. I don't know. Joe.
Not that, yeah.
Would you still see each other pretty often?
Well, we try to have Joe come over to our house for dinner at least once a month, right?
Right.
When
that's
Tish says we need to have Joe come over. So I
Yeah.
call, and then we pick up Joe and bring him to our house, and we have great conversation, great meal, and then we take him home.
Nothing better than that. Yeah. Okay. And so, other than your church activities, it sounds like you're pretty busy though. What else are you doing these days, Joe?
Yeah, well, I have been, well, it seems my calendar is always full, either a doctor appointment or something like that. And I have a lot of friends, that I visit with. And I got to show you in my phone. I got my phone there. I got to show you my phone. I try to walk down my street. I got a street that there's no traffic. Then, so I meet a lot of people that are walking. So lately, the last few weeks or so, as I walk, it's all Orientals on that street now, and a lot of the young gals, and so there's one gal started walking. They start walking with me, and so what happened is that her and her husband, they got to know about my background in World War II, and that got them really excited, and the husband went into it, look at my background, look at YouTube, and they got to know all about my background, and they really were excited about it. So they've been telling all their friends about this World War II friend that they met, and so now I got to show you this one picture here.
99.5 can navigate an iPhone.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
A lot better than me.
Come on. Oh, I gotta get that big here. Oh, here we are. Okay. So 7:30 every night. 7:30 every night. She comes by the house and we go walking. So far, I'm walking a mile every night.
Wow.
I walk slow, but she makes sure I walk.
That's
And
great.
Helen, let's see what.
I don't know how to get it back up.
Let me get this back again.
Turn it this way when you hit it.
Okay.
That's okay. So you can show Dave that. There you go. There.
So now they got all their rich
Oh yeah.
people come by my house, and we walk together with all these wealthy Orientals, and they all call me their war hero, and they keep growing, and tomorrow they're going to they want to take me to a Brown Derby for lunch tomorrow.
To where?
The Brown Derby in Arcadia.
Oh,
to lunch.
okay. Oh, that's
And
pretty.
they're all beautiful young people.
Yeah.
And it's growing. And so I thought that was quite a deal.
You're the Pied Piper.
Yeah, so but I did want to tell you this, I didn't want to so many things about the wartime too, was that after the ridges we took over the ridges and everything, were training out for Japan invasion. We had our lieutenant decided that we should do something and walk of the Bataan March. So the whole regiment got on and walked that. We didn't go the full 80 miles, but we took a long walk to show the march. And then along the side it was a sort of a cave-like, probably where a lot of the men were killed and thrown in there. So I thought I'd tell you that, and that was quite a deal for us to find out. For those poor guys, there was 85,000 of them were left behind when the general left, you know.
Right.
And it's sad that many were left there, and then most of them died, you know.
Yeah.
And they were killed, or they walked in there. They just thrown aside and treated very nastily, like, and that was sad.
Did you ever think about or why the Japanese, for the most, treated their enemies so badly?
Well, I think that the officers or whatever it is that train these people to be that way. I think that was their thing. Just like they did all they can to if they were able to build more along, they could have taken over the United States very easily, because we were not ready for them. Right. And the thing that I didn't tell you, that when I think I told you when I was in the 13th grade, and I was so upset about us not doing anything. I'm saying this again because I want to tell you why. With our president and not doing anything to build up anything like that. And then when Pearl Harbor was hit, I said the same thing. And why I say it now, the same thing is happening right now. It's just like a pattern. Like I'm telling the same thing now. We're not building depleted our military, depleted all our different departments, and all these other countries are building up for them. Our shores are open for these people to come, and we're not ready for them. I keep telling that story right now to let people know the same thing is happening now that happened in World War II. And I just hope they get that message, because I'm very careful what I say, because I may not come home if I say anything that's not right, you know, but I do bring that up, that I think is very important. These people should know. We're going through the same pattern now as it was 83 years ago, you know, and so, but I say as a youngster, I think my family didn't pay attention to me, but I was really upset about what was happening as a youngster.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I wish I could remember a lot more things for you than World War II. If you have any questions, I could maybe come
Well, what I always like to, I think maybe we're can about wrap this up now, but I always want to ask somebody like you, if you had advice to a young person in the Army or the Marine Corps or whatever that might be going into harm's way like you did, what kind of advice would you have for them? Best way to survive, or to...
You know, like what I tell a lot of people as an 18-year-old that never shaved and looked like a kid all the time, I just hope that we never have a war that you go through what I went through and many more went through. I said that you figure out, because 18 years old and getting out of school, you're just trying to get your life together, and they're taking 4 years away from you. And when you come back, I mean, you're ill, you're sick, you're not the same person. I'm not the same person. I would have been a beautiful person if I didn't have to go to war, but this really hurt me very badly, and it hurt many more. And so I like to tell them, what could I tell them? I just don't want to see that happen to them. But if it's something that is necessary, I mean, I went there all gung-ho to do for my country to save it, I would do it. I mean, and I'm sure that someone will do that too. And a lot of what I do right now, my speeches I go along, I always try to, I don't have any notes, I just like I'm talking to you. Like in World War II, we lost 650,000 young men. And I bring that up to the people. plus I says we probably lost 300 or 400,000 in the end of the three wars. So now we lost 1 million men. And I tell you, why we lost, what them men lost their lives for. I said they lost their lives for the love of our country, the love of our Constitution, and then the love of our flag. And that's what they lost their lives. And now we have all these people destroying everything that we done. And I called the American Legion. I tried to, there's 26 million veterans out there. They should be getting out there and talking like I'm doing, because they fought for what I fought for. And you got to get out there and speak out and have these kids coming in and tearing down this country, these store cases and these cities and everything that's going on. And what's happening with these people from the Israel war and everything, acting up like that and destroying our colleges and doing what they're doing, and never should happen. That never should happen. So that's a story that Bill makes sure I always tell too, is that, like, you know, in World War II, people in the world just was amazed to see how our country come together. All the women, you know, and building our ships, you know, supplies, weapons, and whatever we needed, they supplied us for it. Then all those nurses that were helping these people get, these young men that got hurt, and keeping them alive, and the waves and the wax and all the things they've done. And then I say, and if it wasn't for the women, we would never won this war. And I get an oration. But anyway, that's usually, at the very end, I usually try to tell that. But there's so much to talk about. There's so much to say, you know. Trying to avoid another war like we had. I mean, the next war is going to be a disaster, because the people that have all the equipment to come here, our shores are empty. They can come in right now and destroy us. And but anyway, when I tell them about the story about that, I tell them, but I just want you to know that I was there when all my friends were blown away. Then I tell them the story about wrapping them up, and I tear them up, and then they give more money, and then we collect a lot of money.
Joe, I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your service to our country, to your community, to your church, and to coming in and sharing with us today. Thank you so much.
I'm not done. I got one more thing to say.
Okay.
Thank
you,
you know,
Liam, thank you, buddy.
I've been in a position where I could have been dead very easily, just like anybody else. And I just feel grateful that I was able to come home to my mother and father and my family. But I didn't tell you when I was in New Caledonia that we were training a lot, you know. So I was put in a gun position. We dig with 4x4x4, all of them put our gun position in there. And I was working on my gun, and I looked up and I saw this caribou coming my way. Then the caribou's weighed about 1,000, 1,100 pounds or so. I think it coming through, and I paid no attention to it. I was still working on my gun, you know. I guess it was 15 foot away from my hole. It was coming right toward me. I just jumped up when that thing fell right in my hole. So that was the first part. I could have been dead immediately. So that's something I never told you about. And that these are things that happen. And for this little guy, we were religious people. We never curse. We never curse in our home with prayers and a happy home. And here I learned every vocabulary you want to know in the service, you know. And I try to keep up with everybody. I'm still a kid. When I come home, I still not shaved, you know. I still look like a little kid, you know. And I'm still don't have much of a beard. I can't tell you why, but anyway, I try to tell my story. I try to tell my story, but I really upset what's happening with our country right now. what this guy's done is just destroyed everything we fought for. And I try to bring up the amount of people, young men that died, and he couldn't come home to their mother and father, you know, so to maintain what we had going in our life here in this country.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who